It started in a hangar that smelled like jet fuel, sweat, and ego, the kind of place where ranks blurred under noise and heat, and reputations were made through bravado, not medals. Inside stood Lieutenant Sarah Wraith Connors, 5'4", barely 115 pounds, standing among towering pilots who looked like they'd been carved from steel. She wasn't supposed to fit the image of a fighter pilot, and that was exactly why Captain Mason Reeves thought it was funny. Reeves was loud, cocky, and fresh from a promotion. He looked at Sarah with that smirk, the one that said she didn't belong here. "You sure you can reach the pedals, Wraith?" He laughed, tossing his helmet on the bench. The other pilots chuckled. Sarah didn't respond. She just tightened her flight gloves, the kind of silence that carried more weight than words. She'd heard it all before, from boot camp to simulator runs, but there was something different today, because tomorrow they'd be flying into an active combat zone in northern Syria, a high-risk extraction mission under live fire. Reeves didn't take her seriously, not even when briefing officers emphasized precision flying. He dismissed her as a backup, someone to handle comms or cover airspace, but Sarah's flight record said otherwise. One of the best reaction times in her class, over 200 flight hours logged, and a reputation among instructors for pulling off impossible landings during training. Still, Reeves brushed it off, because ego is louder than data. When they walked to their jets that evening, the air was tense, dust storms brewing on the horizon, the base loudspeakers humming with coded chatter. Sarah stopped by her FA-18, the jet gleaming under floodlights. She ran her hand along the hull, steady, quiet. Reeves passed her with a mocking salute. "Try to keep up, Tiny," he said, his voice fading into the roar of turbines. She didn't flinch, didn't look up, but inside, she made a quiet promise. Tomorrow, when everything fell apart, she'd show them who really belonged in that cockpit, because sometimes respect isn't given, it's earned mid-air at 9 Gs, when death is one wrong move away. Dawn broke over the desert like a flame, orange and fierce. The squadron moved out under radio silence, their objective clear: provide cover for a convoy extraction deep in contested territory. The mission was supposed to be quick, surgical, minimal contact, but war never follows orders. Reeves led the formation. Sarah flanked right, scanning radar for bogies. The radio crackled, tension bleeding through every coded phrase. At first everything went smooth. The convoy was moving, the sky clear, but then ground control broke in. Hostile radar lock detected, 2 unidentified contacts incoming. Reeves barked orders, his tone suddenly clipped. All wings, defensive posture. Sarah's pulse spiked, her eyes darted across instruments. She caught the blip first. Low altitude, fast approach, likely enemy interceptors. Reeves didn't see them until it was too late. "Break, break, incoming," she shouted, pulling hard on the stick. The horizon spun, tracers cut across the sky. The world became chaos. One explosion lit up Reeves's left wing. His voice screamed through comms, I'm hit, I'm hit." Smoke trailed, alarms wailed. Sarah's mind went quiet, focused, surgical. She flipped switches, redirected her trajectory. "Stay with me, Captain. Bring your bird east," she said, her calm voice slicing through panic. Reeves's breathing was heavy, his control systems failing. They were 30 miles from base, surrounded by anti-air fire. Sarah took lead, radioing for emergency landing clearance. "Tower, this is Wraith 02. We have a critical hit on Wraith 01. Requesting field vector." The line was static, comms jammed. They were blind. In that moment, leadership shifted without words. Reeves followed her trail, smoke thick behind him. "How are you still flying?" he gasped. "Don't talk," she said flatly. "Just follow." Missiles screamed past. Sarah banked sharply, diving under radar. The G-force crushed her chest. Her jet rattled violently, but she didn't waver. Every movement was instinct, every choice calculated. She wasn't supposed to lead, but now she was the only one who could get them home. By the time they reached the outskirts of friendly airspace, Reeves's jet was bleeding hydraulic fluid, fire licking the tail. Ejecting meant capture, maybe worse, and Sarah knew it. She glanced at his coordinates, still too high, too far, the ground below dotted with hostile trucks. She made a call that no one else would dare. "We're not making base. You're losing control. Divert to fallback zone, Charlie." Reeves hesitated. "That's a dead zone. No landing strip." "There will be," she said, her tone cold but sure. She dropped altitude, mapping terrain through infrared, spotted an old highway, half buried in sand, narrow, uneven, suicidal to attempt in crosswind. But it was the only chance. "You're out of your mind," Reeves muttered. "Confirmed," she replied, half a smirk in her voice. the kind of humor pilots use when death is an inch away. She took point, broadcasting quick commands: cut throttle to 60, lock flaps manual, I'll guide you down. The air was chaos, dust storms rising, turbulence hitting like hammers. Reeves's landing gear refused to deploy. He cursed, panicked. I can't level, I can't. I'll handle it, Sarah said. Then she did something insane. She pulled her jet around in a wide arc, rolling upside down, reversing direction, flying backward relative to his descent, a maneuver used only in simulation, impossible in field conditions. Her jet shuddered under pressure, but she maintained visual, lining herself opposite Reeves's trajectory. Match my vector, she ordered. Use my position as guide. Reeves's voice cracked. You're flying backward. I noticed, she shot back, grit in her tone. She was using visual sightlines to control his descent like a mirror, adjusting pitch by watching her own inverted reflection of his jet. Both aircraft screaming through dust and wind, the ground rushing up. Now cut throttle, deploy chute. Do it now, she shouted. He did hard. His jet skidded across sand, sparks flying, metal screaming. It stopped barely intact. Sarah banked hard, flipped orientation mid-air, and aimed for a landing right beside him. Engines sputtering, she hit ground, bounced twice, and skidded into formation. Her brakes burned out, alarms shrieked, silence followed, dust engulfed them. 2 jets down, both pilots alive. Somehow, for a moment, there was only silence. Then Reeves's voice broke through the static, shaking. Connors, you, how the hell did you get out of the jet? She cut him off, scanning instruments. No hostiles nearby yet, but they wouldn't have long. She unstrapped, dropped to the sand, the heat hitting like a wall. Reeves stumbled out, still in shock, smoke trailing behind them. You landed that thing backward, he said, disbelief painted across his face. No, she replied, checking her sidearm. I landed it alive. Distant thuds echoed, enemy artillery adjusting range. The extraction zone was compromised. Sarah switched to emergency frequency. Base, this is Wraith 02, pilots down at fallback Charlie, requesting evac. No response. The comms were fried. She turned to Reeves. We move now. He hesitated. The jets, forget them, she snapped. She knew the clock better than anyone. 15 minutes before their coordinates were discovered, they moved through sand, heat shimmering, the smell of fuel thick in the air. Sarah led with tactical precision, scanning every ridge, every shadow. Reeves followed, humbled, silent for once. They reached a ridge overlooking a wadi. Sarah pulled binoculars, spotted an approaching friendly convoy. Rescue or patrol, she couldn't tell. She fired a flare, then crouched low, heart pounding. Seconds stretched like hours, until finally, the convoy signaled back. Friendly, she exhaled, tension breaking slightly. Reeves sat beside her, the reality sinking in. He looked at her, really looked this time, and the mockery that once filled his tone was gone. You saved my life, he said quietly. You flew like no one I've ever seen. She gave a dry smile. That's what the short ones do. Her humor was tired, her body aching, but her eyes were steady. The convoy arrived minutes later, soldiers rushing to secure the area. The medic checked them over, both alive, dehydrated, shaken but intact. Command called in moments later. The mission logs already flagged the impossible landing maneuver, an inverted descent under combat interference, something no pilot had ever executed outside simulation. Reeves sat in the armored transport on the way back to base, staring at her through the dust, finally understanding what kind of pilot she really was. Back at the base, the hangar was silent as the debrief began. Sarah stood at attention, uniform crisp despite the dust and exhaustion. Across the table, a panel of officers and analysts watched her flight footage. No one spoke for a full minute after it ended. The video showed her jet spinning inverted, engines flaring, guiding Reeves's descent like a dance of fire and smoke. One colonel finally leaned forward. Lieutenant Connors, do you realize what you just did was aerodynamically impossible? Sarah kept her tone neutral. Yes, sir, that's why I didn't think too much about it. The room stayed quiet. Reeves was beside her, still bandaged, looking like a man who'd seen a ghost. She saved my life, he said firmly, his voice carrying weight this time. I lost control, and she pulled off something that shouldn't be real. The colonel nodded slowly. It's real enough now. Outside the glass window, technicians were inspecting what was left of their jets, both damaged beyond repair, but both landed, not crashed, landed, and that distinction meant everything. Sarah's record was flawless before, but now it was legendary, though she didn't see it that way. When asked why she risked an inverted approach in a combat zone, she answered simply, because there was no one else left to fly the other way. Her words carried quiet conviction. no dramatics, no pride, just fact. Reeves watched her, humbled in a way that stripped all arrogance away. Later in the canteen he approached her, tray in hand, awkwardly. "I owe you a drink," he said. She didn't look up, just replied, "Make it two." For the first time since they met, he laughed without mockery. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the base perimeter, the hangar lights flickered on, reflecting off her name painted on the jet she'd saved. Technicians had stenciled something small beneath it, a single word, backwards. She shook her head, half amused, half tired, because no one would ever believe the full story anyway. Weeks later, the footage leaked through unofficial channels, grainy but undeniable. The backward landing clip spread fast through aviation circles. Analysts debated it, calling it reckless genius, impossible precision. Some said it was luck, others said it was control beyond human instinct. But those who knew her knew it wasn't luck, it was skill sharpened by years of underestimation. Sarah avoided interviews, stayed on base, focused on flight drills. The attention meant little to her. She cared about one thing, the next mission. Reeves, now grounded for recovery, sat in the control tower sometimes, watching her take off, his voice softer now whenever her call sign came through the radio. Wraith 02, clear for takeoff. One day he caught up with her before a sortie. "You know," he said, "they're adding your maneuver to the training manual." She smirked. "Bad idea." "Maybe," he said, "but they're naming it after you." She paused, unsure how to react. "What? The Wraith flip?" He grinned. "Something like that for once." She smiled too, faintly, the kind of smile that hides 1,000 hours of silence. As she climbed into her cockpit, Reeves stood back watching, no longer the arrogant captain, but a man who'd learned humility the hard way. Engines roared to life, the desert wind whipped across the tarmac, and Sarah Connors, the tiny pilot he'd once mocked, soared back into the sky, the jet carving a perfect arc over the horizon. Strong, silent, unstoppable, the base watched in quiet awe as her radio crackled. Wraith 02 airborne, simple words, but they carried a weight no medal could match, no speech could equal, because sometimes the loudest moments in war aren't the explosions or the victories, they're the ones where silence proves everything. She didn't need to prove anyone wrong anymore, she just flew, and the sky finally belonged to her.